another issue for the midterm elections. The migrant caravan from Honduras has swelled to at least 7,000 people now as it makes its way north. It crossed into Mexico over the weekend, and it sets up a potential showdown at the U.S. border, where President Trump says he will use the military, if necessary, to stop these people from coming in. Here now is Tennessee Congressman Chuck Fleischmann. Congressman, thanks very much for joining us. First, let me get your thoughts on this migrant caravan, your reaction to this. What should the U.S. do?
Well, first of all, Maria, good morning to everyone. This is indicative of the fact that the situation at the border is and has been chaotic. We've been saying this for years. It's critical that the United States secure its border, build the wall, get other technology to make sure that our borders are safe and secure. And this is an intolerable situation. We cannot have throngs of people just coming across porous borders. It's a crisis. It needs to be dealt with now, and it needs to be dealt with in the future. That's why we've got to secure our border. That's why we've got to build the wall and make sure that our southern border is safe.
So your colleague, House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, is introducing a bill that would fully fund the president's border wall. You were an original co-sponsor of the bill. Is it going to pass the House?
Sure. It will definitely pass the House. Of course, the arduous task has been always the Senate, the Senate, the Senate. But yes, it will pass the House. It's an important bill. It gives what we wanted, what the president wanted, to fully fund the border wall, but also to make sure that we have other technology, because it's very important to realize that the wall can be built in certain areas, but there are other areas where the wall can't be built. We have to use other advanced technologies to make sure that we keep the illegal immigration from coming across.
Well, how much? Because Kevin McCarthy says that this bill funds $23 billion, which is what's needed for the border wall, because $1.5 billion has already been accounted for. But this weekend, when I spoke with Senator Lindsey Graham and I asked him, will it pass the Senate? He goes, the Senate has $5 billion toward the border wall. You know, he just ignored the $23 billion that Kevin McCarthy's talking about. So where's the disconnect?
Well, the disconnect clearly is that the president and the House have a much easier task to pass what they need. The Senate, because of the numbers, they need to get to 60, have had a lesser number. I will say this: if we get the McCarthy bill passed, and I think we will in the House, it'll give the Senate, particularly this year, an opportunity to sit down and get that done and build the wall in a much more robust way. Let's face it, we did start with $5 billion. That's a start. I actually sit on the Homeland Security Appropriations Subcommittee, on the Appropriations Committee, and that's very important to me. It's important to our subcommittee, and I think it's important to most Americans. We're seeing, by virtue of this caravan right now, just how chaotic and really anarchistic the border situation has become.
What about the bottom line here in terms of economic proposals out of the administration? Over the weekend, the president said that another round of tax cuts is in the works aimed at the middle class. Listen to this.
We are looking at putting in a very major tax cut for middle-income people. And if we do that, it'll be sometime just prior, I would say, to November.
What's the status of this legislation? I mean, the House is out on recess until the midterms.
Well, we'll be back in November, hopefully looking forward to a new Republican majority in both houses. But having said that, it's very important to realize that the first round of tax cuts was very important. We had to get corporate done. We did. That's making America competitive again. We put more money in the hands of hardworking Americans, but we need to refine it now. Obviously, it was so important to get tax reform passed. We got no help from the Democrats. That's actually very sad, and I think that's going to hurt them in the midterms. This was a very good bill the first time. We're just going to make it better.
Okay, but I mean, the economy is growing well. You're talking about 4.25%. There's increasing worries about the deficit. Do we need another tax cut plan right now?
Well, when you look at it as an aggregate, as I've always said, you reduce tax rates on everyone, more money actually comes into the Treasury. Why? You incentivize work, you incentivize investment. Whether you're John Kennedy, Ronald Reagan, or Donald Trump, you realize lower taxes means ultimately more money for the Treasury, and I think that's a good thing. When we talk about deficits, we actually have to look at the spending side of the equation, and sadly, really no one wants to look at that right now, especially on the mandatory side of the equation. Ultimately, I hope we get there, But we don't have a taxing problem in America. We have a spending problem in America. So right now, more money in the hands of hardworking Americans is good for the economy and good for the country.
And then there's Saudi Arabia and the U.S.-Saudi relations now on the line. Secretary Mnuchin is traveling to Saudi today. Some lawmakers are calling for some harsh penalties against the kingdom over its role in the killing of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi. I spoke with Senate Armed Services Committee member Lindsey Graham yesterday on Sunday Morning Futures. Here's his take. Listen to this, Congressman.
I'd like to punish those involved. The Global Magnitsky Act would put punishment sanctions on the individuals that had a hand in this, and I find it impossible to believe that the Crown Prince was not involved. So go after him and his inner circle. Save the alliance. I don't mind military sales, but I cannot do business with the current leadership, MBS. He's done to me.
What about that, Congressman? Does MBS, the Crown Prince, need to step down?
Well, first of all, let me commend President Trump. He's handled this crisis very well. He demanded facts. He's getting facts. We're getting into the investigation right now. But his response to this, and he's withholding judgment on the final punishment, and I think that's very smart. Looking at it this way, Saudi Arabia is a key actor in the Middle East. This was a tragedy. We can't say it any other way. It should not have happened. It's an atrocity what happened to this journalist. However, we have to make sure that the punishment or the sanction fits what they did and punishes the people who are accountable or who actually did this. Having said that, Saudi Arabia just made a major military purchase from the United States. They are a key actor, if you will, a key check on Iran and other countries in the region who've been aberrant lately. So we've got to have a reasoned response, and I think President Trump has handled this perfectly. He's looking at it, he's concerned about it, he's condemned it, but he's going to make sure that the punishment fits the crime.
What are you expecting in the midterms, Congressman, in terms of how this plays out? 15 days away.
I'm optimistic. Let's face it, the Senate is trending up very well in our great state of Tennessee. Marsha Blackburn, in a key state, is going to do very well. I think she's going to win. Looking across the map, the Senate's in very good shape. A month ago, I was extremely concerned about the House. Those competitive House seats, though, have moved much tighter. It's gone very well. I think we're going to hold the House. It's razor thin. But I think independents are going to see that the Democratic Party has really gone off the rails. Unfortunately, the Democratic Party, like the Republican Party, used to at least to play on the same field. The Democrats, sadly, have jettisoned so far to the left that I think the American people need to cure this, and I think independents will do that and come out and vote for Republicans. My prediction, we will hold the House.
Congressman, good to see you this morning. Thanks so much. Congressman Chuck Fleischmann there.